They mocked the thin child begging outside their charity gala. "Disgusting," they whispered. She lowered her eyes and walked away. When they discovered she was selling her drawings for her brother's dialysis, it was already too late. The sound of glass shattering echoed through the small apartment as Jake Thompson's medication vial slipped from his trembling fingers. His sister Maya lunged forward, but it was too late. The precious liquid, the last dose they could afford. This month, spread across the cracked linoleum floor like spilled hope. "I'm sorry," Jake whispered, his normally pale face now ashen. At 15, he looked closer to 12, his body wasted by kidney disease that seemed to consume him more each day. "Maya, I'm so sorry." Maya Thompson, 12 years old and rail-thin, dropped to her knees beside her brother's wheelchair. With hands that should have been playing with toys instead of cleaning up medical waste, she gathered the glass fragments carefully. "It's not your fault," she said, her voice steadier than her heart. "We'll figure something out. We always do." Their mother, Diane, appeared in the doorway, still wearing her convenience store uniform after working a double shift. The dark circles under her eyes had become permanent fixtures since her husband's death 2 years ago. When she saw the broken vial, she pressed her lips together to stop them from trembling. "That was $400, she said quietly, not accusingly, just stating the brutal reality of their situation. "I don't get paid again until next Friday." "I'll sell my drawings," Maya said, rising to her feet. "Mrs. Sanchez says they're good enough. Really good. She gave me those special pencils last week, remember?" Diane looked at her daughter. So small, so determined, carrying the weight of adult worries on her narrow shoulders. She wanted to protect her children, to tell Maya to be a kid, to play and dream. But Jake needed dialysis, and their insurance had disappeared along with Diane's manufacturing job 6 months ago. The convenience store didn't offer benefits, and they were still waiting for state assistance. "Maya, honey, art doesn't sell overnight," Diane said gently. Maya walked to her bedroom, really just a converted closet with a twin mattress on the floor, and returned with a newspaper clipping. "The Children's Future Foundation is having their annual charity gala tonight at the Grand Meridian Hotel. Rich people who care about kids will be there. Mrs. Sanchez says these kinds of people buy art all the time." Diane shook her head. "That's for invited guests, Maya. They won't let you in." "I don't need to get in," Maya insisted. "I can stand outside. Please, Mom. Jake needs his treatment on Monday." Jake looked up from his wheelchair. "Let her try, Mom," he said, his voice barely audible. "She's better at fighting than both of us." Diane Thompson looked at her children, one fading before her eyes, the other burning with desperate determination, and knew she had no right to extinguish that flame, no matter how unlikely success seemed. "Okay," she finally agreed. "But you, take your phone. You stay in public areas, and you're home by 9. No exceptions." Maya nodded solemnly, then retrieved her portfolio from beneath her bed. Inside were 12 drawings she'd been working on for months. Landscapes, portraits, and abstract pieces, each one carefully created with the colored pencils Mrs. Sanchez had given her. She wrapped the portfolio in plastic to protect it from the rain that had been falling intermittently all day. As Maya prepared to leave, Jake wheeled himself over to her. From his pocket, he pulled a small origami crane, folded from the bright blue paper that had wrapped his birthday present last month. "For luck," he said, pressing it into her palm. "Dad always said blue was the color of possibilities." Maya tucked the crane into her portfolio between 2 of her best drawings. Then she hugged her brother, careful not to squeeze too hard against his fragile frame. "I won't come back empty-handed," she promised. "That's a Thompson guarantee." "It" was the phrase their father used to say before he got sick, when he still believed that hard work could overcome any obstacle. Before they learned that some battles can't be won with determination alone. The Grand Meridian Hotel stood like a gleaming monument to prosperity in downtown Boston. its limestone facade illuminated by strategic lighting that made it glow against the gray evening sky. Maya had seen it in pictures, but never up close. From her bus stop 3 blocks away, it looked like something from another world, her world's polar opposite. She clutched her portfolio tighter as she walked, the plastic crinkling under her fingers. The intermittent rain had stopped for now, but dark clouds threatened overhead. Maya had worn her best clothes, a faded blue sweater that had once belonged to a cousin and her least-worn jeans. She'd tied her dark hair back with a frayed ribbon her mother had saved from a long-ago birthday present. As she approached the hotel, gleaming cars pulled up to the entrance. Mercedes, BMWs, even a Rolls-Royce, disgorging passengers in evening wear who moved quickly inside, barely glancing at the tuxedoed doorman who greeted them. Maya positioned herself near the entrance, but not too close. She didn't want to be shooed away before she even had a chance. She watched the gleaming cars arrive for nearly an hour, working up the courage to approach. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Everything okay?" Maya replied quickly, "Yes, no luck yet, still trying." The evening grew colder, and Maya pulled her sweater tighter around her thin frame. A light drizzle began to fall again, and she tucked her portfolio inside her sweater to keep it dry. That's when she saw the sign near the side entrance. Children's Future Foundation Annual Gala. Making Dreams Come True. Making Dreams Come True. Maya took a deep breath. If any dreams needed making true tonight, it was Jake's dream of having a future at all. With renewed determination, she walked toward the hotel's front entrance. Her worn sneakers squeaked on the polished marble floor of the lobby, drawing the attention of the doorman. "Can I help you?" he asked, eyeing her suspiciously. I'm here for the charity event," Maya stammered. "I want to show them my art." The doorman's expression softened slightly at the mention of art, but he remained firm. "The gala is for invited guests only, miss." "Please," Maya whispered, her voice catching. "My brother needs dialysis. We don't have insurance anymore since Mom got laid off. I thought maybe I could sell some drawings to the people here. They're helping children, right? My brother is a child who needs help." Something in her earnest plea seemed to reach the doorman. He studied her for a long moment, noting her thin frame and the determined set of her jaw. In his 20 years working at the Grand Meridian, he'd developed an instinct for trouble, and this child didn't set off any alarms. If anything, she reminded him of his own niece, too serious for her age, carrying adult burdens. "Wait here," he finally said with a sigh. He disappeared through the ballroom doors, returning a moment later with a woman in a sleek black dress who introduced herself as Ms. Winters, an event coordinator. "Let's see what you have," the woman said, not unkindly but with obvious skepticism. Maya carefully opened her portfolio, handling the pages with reverence. Ms. Winters glanced at the drawings, her eyebrows rising slightly as she flipped through them. "These are actually quite good," she said, genuine surprise in her voice. She studied a portrait of an elderly man that captured a lifetime of experience in the subject's eyes. "Very good, in fact. Did you really draw these yourself?" "Yes, ma'am." "Okay," Maya replied. "My art teacher at school says I have a natural perspective. She's the one who gave me the colored pencils." Ms. Winters seemed impressed but conflicted. "I can't let you into the gala to sell them. It's against our policy, and frankly, the security team would have my job." Maya's shoulders slumped, but she wasn't ready to give up. "What if I just stand outside the doors, just for a little while? I won't bother anyone who doesn't want to be bothered." Ms. Winters bit her lip, then checked her watch. "The dinner service is about to begin, so most guests will be seated for the next hour. After that, people will be mingling again." She made a decision. 15 minutes during the networking hour. That's all I can give you. You can stand by the ballroom entrance, but if anyone complains, you'll have to leave immediately. Maya's face lit up with such hope that Ms. Winters felt a twist of emotion. "Thank you," the girl said earnestly. Thank you so much." "Wait in the lobby until 8:30, Ms. Winters instructed. "Martin at the door will show you where to stand when it's time." She hesitated, then added, "Good luck." Maya retreated to a small bench in the lobby, perching on the edge like a sparrow ready to take flight at the first sign of danger. She watched as latecomers hurried through to the ballroom. Women in jewels that caught the light, men in tuxedos that probably cost more than her family's rent. From her vantage point, she could glimpse the ballroom through the partially open doors. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen fireworks, casting golden light across the room. Round tables draped in white linen surrounded a central stage where a podium stood ready for speakers. A banner across the back of the stage proclaimed "A future for every child." Maya wondered if they meant children like Jake, or if every child had fine print exceptions that she couldn't see from where she sat. At precisely 8:30, Martin the doorman motioned to her. "Ms. Winters says you can come now. Remember, 15 minutes." Maya nodded, gathering her portfolio and following him to a spot near the ballroom entrance. Inside, she could see that dinner was finishing, with waiters clearing plates. Some guests had already begun to move about, networking with, drinks in hand. "Good luck, kid," Martin said quietly before returning to his post. Maya positioned herself as unobtrusively as possible while still being visible to those entering or leaving the ballroom. Her heart pounded so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. She'd never attempted anything like this before, never tried to sell her art, never approached strangers with a request. But Jake's face floated in her mind, giving her courage. The first few people passed her without a glance. Maya opened her mouth to speak, but found her voice had deserted her. She swallowed hard and tried again as a couple approached. "Excuse me," she managed, barely audible. "Would you like to see my drawings?" The couple looked startled, then uncomfortable. The woman gave a tight smile and shook her head without breaking stride. Maya tried again with an older gentleman who seemed less rushed. "Sir, I'm selling my artwork. Would you like to see?" He paused, peering at her through thick glasses. "Selling artwork? Here?" "Yes, sir. I draw portraits and landscapes. The money is for my brother's medical treatment." The man seemed uncertain. "I don't think this is the appropriate venue, young lady. There are proper channels for charity cases." He moved on, leaving Maya standing alone again. She approached several more people, each time her voice growing slightly stronger, but the responses were similar: awkward declines, confused glances, or simple indifference. One woman actually stopped and looked at her drawings, commenting that they showed promise but ultimately handed the portfolio back with an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry, but I've already made my charitable contribution for the evening. Perhaps you could try an art fair." Maya nodded politely, but her spirit was beginning to falter. The 15 minutes Ms. Winters had granted her were ticking away with nothing to show for her efforts. She was considering whether to approach a group by the bar when a trio of women emerged from the ballroom, deep in conversation. They were impeccably dressed, one in emerald green silk, one in a classic black gown, and the third in a champagne-colored dress that seemed to shimmer under the lights. The woman in green wore a diamond necklace that caught the light with every movement of her head. They exuded confidence and belonging, clearly comfortable in this world of wealth and influence. Maya hesitated but reminded herself of what was at stake. She stepped forward, portfolio clutched to her chest like a shield. "Excuse me," she said, her voice small but determined. "Would you like to see my drawings? I'm selling them to help pay for my brother's medical treatment." The three women paused in their conversation, turning to look at Maya with varying degrees of surprise. The woman in green, the one with the diamond necklace worth more than Maya's entire apartment building, looked her up and down with an appraising glance that made Maya feel like a specimen under glass. "Why aren't you in school?" she asked sharply, though her tone suggested she wasn't actually interested in the answer. "It's Saturday, ma'am," Maya replied, holding her ground despite the woman's intimidating manner. The woman, Victoria Harrington, though Maya couldn't know this, exchanged meaningful glances with her friends. "This is inappropriate," she said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Security should never have let her in. "Disgusting," one of her companions, Elise Blackwell, wife of a pharmaceutical executive, whispered, wrinkling her nose, using a sob story at a charity event. The third woman, Margaret Wellington, whose husband chaired the hospital board, shook her head. "Probably not even true. Parents sending their kids to beg while they're off doing God knows what." Their words struck Maya like physical blows. She'd been prepared for rejection, even indifference, but not outright disdain. These women weren't just declining her offer, they were questioning her integrity, her family's integrity. Heat rushed to Maya's cheeks, burning with a mixture of shame and indignation. She wanted to defend herself, to tell them about Jake's fight for his life, about her mother working double shifts, about the drawings she'd poured her heart into, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she lowered her eyes and clutched her portfolio tighter against her chest, her thin shoulders hunching forward as if to protect her vital organs from further attack. Without another word, she turned and walked away, feeling the women's stares boring into her back. Near the coat check, Dr. Catherine Morales had been retrieving her wrap when she overheard the exchange. She watched the girl retreat toward the exit, something about the child's dignity in the face of cruelty striking her heart. In her 15 years as a pediatrician at Boston General Hospital, Catherine had seen too many children bearing adult burdens, illness, poverty, trauma. There was a particular stoicism they developed, a quiet resilience that both inspired and broke her heart. She wanted to follow the girl immediately, to check on her and perhaps even look at the drawings that seemed so precious. But just then her colleague Dr. Harrison appeared at her elbow. "Catherine, there you are. Eleanor's looking for you everywhere. You're up next for the presentation about pediatric care in underserved communities." Catherine hesitated, looking from her colleague to the retreating figure of the girl. Professional. Duty warred with personal instinct. "Can you stall for 5 minutes?" she asked. Dr. Harrison shook his head. "The schedule's already running behind. Eleanor's getting anxious. You know how these donors are. Keep them waiting too long and they start leaving with their checkbooks still closed." Catherine sighed and nodded, making a mental note to look for the girl after her presentation. She hurried back into the ballroom, where Eleanor Wright, the Foundation's chairwoman, was already at the podium introducing her. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Catherine Morales, Chief of Pediatrics at Boston General Hospital. Dr. Morales has pioneered several outreach programs that have dramatically improved healthcare access for children in our city's most vulnerable communities." Catherine took the stage, her thoughts still partly with the thin girl and her drawings. But she had an audience of potential donors before her, and this was her chance to secure funding that could help hundreds of children like that girl. She pushed her personal concerns aside and launched into her carefully prepared speech. "Thank you, Eleanor. As we gather here in comfort and security, I'd like to take you just a few miles away, to neighborhoods where children are fighting battles that no child should have to face alone." Outside the Grand Meridian, the rain had intensified, coming down in sheets that turned the elegant streetscape into a glistening blur. Maya pushed through the revolving door into the downpour, barely noticing the water immediately soaking through her thin sweater. The plastic around her portfolio offered some protection for her drawings, but it wasn't designed for this kind of deluge. She hunched over, trying to shield her precious cargo with her body as she hurried away from the hotel. Tears mixed with raindrops on her face, the humiliation of the women's words still burning in her chest. "Disgusting," the woman had said, as if Maya's desperation for her brother's sake was something shameful, something dirty. A sob escaped her throat, but the sound was swallowed by a crack of thunder overhead. The storm was worsening, matching Maya's turbulent emotions. She should find shelter, call her mother to come get her, but shame kept her moving. How could she go home empty-handed? What would she tell Jake, who had given her his lucky crane and was waiting with such hope? The rain plastered her dark hair to her skull despite the frayed ribbon's attempt to hold it back. Water ran in rivulets down her neck and under her collar, chilling her to the bone. Her worn sneakers were soaked through, squishing with every step as she splashed through growing puddles. Maya was so consumed by her thoughts and the effort to protect her drawings that she didn't notice she'd reached an intersection. The pedestrian signal was red, but in her distress she stepped off the curb anyway, her vision blurred by rain and tears. Behind her, back at the Grand Meridian, Dr. Catherine Morales had finished her presentation to enthusiastic applause. She had spoken passionately about the healthcare disparities in their city, about children who went without necessary treatments because of financial barriers, about preventable suffering that persisted despite living in one of the wealthiest nations on Earth. As the applause died down, Eleanor Wright returned to the podium. "Thank you, Dr. Morales, for that moving presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all for your generous contributions tonight. Together, we've raised over $300,000 for children in need." A fresh round of applause rippled through the room as the wealthy donors congratulated themselves on their philanthropy. Champagne glasses clinked as toasts were made to charitable giving and the difference it would make. Catherine made her way through the crowd, accepting congratulations and fielding questions about her programs. But her mind kept returning to the thin girl with the portfolio. As soon as she could politely extricate herself from a conversation with a potential donor, she headed for the lobby. "Martin," she said to the doorman she knew from her many attendances at hospital fundraisers, "there was a young girl here earlier, very thin, carrying a portfolio. Did you see where she went?" Martin nodded. "Poor thing. Some ladies gave her a hard time, and she left in quite a state. Headed east, I think, but that was maybe 15 minutes ago. In this weather, she couldn't have gone far." Catherine thanked him and retrieved her umbrella from the coat check. She had a feeling about this girl, an instinct honed by years of working with children in crisis. Something told her this wasn't just a case of a young artist facing rejection. There was real desperation driving that child. As Catherine pushed through the revolving door into the rain, she couldn't know that Maya was already blocks away, crossing. Against the light at the intersection of Commonwealth and Berkeley. The headlights appeared suddenly, cutting through the rain like twin searchlights. Maya froze in their glare, momentarily blinded. The driver of the black sedan saw her too late. A small, thin figure materialized in the middle of the road where no pedestrian should have been. The driver slammed on the brakes, but the wet pavement extended the stopping distance. The car went into a slight skid, tires fighting for purchase on the slick asphalt. Maya's instinct was to run, but her body wouldn't respond to the command. She stood paralyzed as the car bore down on her, still clutching her portfolio to her chest. In that eternal moment before impact, a strange calm washed over her. She thought of Jake, of the origami crane nestled between her drawings, of her father's voice saying, "That's a Thompson guarantee." The bumper caught her hip with just enough force to send her sprawling onto the wet asphalt. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs and sent pain shooting through her side, but it wasn't the direct hit that could have been fatal. The driver had managed to slow the car and swerve enough to glance her rather than hit her head-on. Maya's portfolio flew from her grasp as she fell, landing several feet away. The plastic wrapping tore on impact and rain immediately began to seep into the exposed edges. Her drawings, her hope for Jake's treatment, scattered across the wet street. "Oh my God!" The driver leapt out and rushed to her side, heedless of the rain now drenching his expensive suit. "Are you okay? Can you move? I didn't see you until, God, you came out of nowhere." Maya tried to sit up, wincing at the pain in her side. But her focus wasn't on her injury or the panicking driver. It was on her ruined artwork dissolving on the pavement. The colored pencil drawings were bleeding into watercolor rivers as the rain destroyed months of work. "My drawings," she whispered, watching her brother's chance at treatment wash away down the storm drain. She tried to stand, to salvage what she could, but pain shot through her hip and she crumpled back to the ground with a cry. "Don't move," the driver said, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling an ambulance. You need to be checked out." "No," Maya protested weakly. "No ambulance. We can't afford—" She broke off as a fresh wave of pain silenced her. The driver, a middle-aged man in a well-tailored suit, looked at her with growing concern. "Kid, you need medical attention. I hit you with my car. That's not negotiable." As he dialed 911, Maya's gaze remained fixed on her scattered artwork. One drawing in particular caught her attention. A portrait of Jake sitting by their apartment window, sunlight casting half his face in warmth while shadow claimed the other half. It was her best work, the one Mrs. Sanchez had said showed remarkable talent for someone so young. The rain was already causing the colors to run, turning Jake's carefully rendered features into a blur of melting pigment. Maya reached out toward it helplessly, but it was too far away, and her body refused to cooperate. The driver was speaking to the emergency dispatcher now, giving their location and a description of what had happened. Yes, pedestrian struck, conscious but in pain. Young girl, maybe 11 or 12. No, I don't know her name. Maya wanted to tell him her name, to assert her identity in this moment of helplessness, but a wave of dizziness washed over her. The shock was setting in, her body's response to trauma and the cold rain soaking her to the skin. "Jake," she murmured, thinking of her brother waiting at home, expecting news of her success. "I promised." The driver crouched beside her, shrugging off his suit jacket and draping it over her trembling form. "The ambulance is on its way. Just hold on, okay? What's your name?" "Maya," she managed. "Maya Thompson." "I'm Richard," he said, trying to keep her engaged. "Who's Jake? Is that someone we should call?" "My brother," Maya whispered. "He needs dialysis. That's why I was selling my drawings. For his treatment on Monday." Understanding dawned in Richard's eyes as he looked from Maya to the ruined artwork scattered around them. "Oh, kid," he said softly. "I'm so sorry." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder as the ambulance approached. Maya's consciousness was beginning to fade at the edges, the pain and cold and crushing disappointment overwhelming her system. Her last clear thought before the paramedics arrived was of Jake's origami crane, now somewhere among her ruined drawings. Its bright blue paper dissolving in the rain, taking their hope with it. Dr. Catherine Morales had left the Grand Meridian and walked several blocks in the direction Martin had indicated, her umbrella offering minimal protection against the driving rain. There was no sign of the thin girl with the portfolio, and Catherine was beginning to think her impulsive search was futile. She was about to turn back when she heard sirens and saw flashing lights at an intersection 2 blocks ahead. Something. Call. It, doctor's intuition, or simply human concern, propelled her forward. As she approached, she saw paramedics loading someone onto a stretcher. A small figure, too small to be an adult. Catherine quickened her pace, arriving at the scene just as they were closing the ambulance doors. "Wait," she called out, holding up her hospital ID. "I'm Dr. Morales from Boston General. What happened here?" One of the paramedics recognized her. "Pedestrian versus car, Dr. Morales. Young female, approximately 12 years old, conscious but with possible hip fracture and signs of shock." Catherine's heart sank. "Can I see her?" The paramedic hesitated, then nodded, opening the door again. Inside, lying on the stretcher, was the same thin girl from the hotel, now pale and shivering under emergency blankets. "I know this child," Catherine said, climbing into the ambulance. "I'll ride with her." She turned to the paramedic. "Which hospital are you taking her to?" "Boston General," he replied. "It's closest." Catherine nodded and took a seat beside the stretcher, reaching for the girl's hand. It was cold and trembling slightly. "Maya?" she said gently, remembering the name she'd heard the girl use earlier. "Can you hear me? I'm Dr. Morales. I saw you at the hotel earlier." Maya's eyelids fluttered open, confusion clouding her gaze. "My drawings," she whispered. "They're ruined. Jake's treatment." "Don't worry about that now," Catherine said, squeezing her hand. "We need to take care of you first." As the ambulance pulled away, Catherine noticed a man standing in the rain, watching them leave, the driver of the car, presumably. He looked shell-shocked, holding what appeared to be a soggy portfolio and some dripping papers. The paramedic closed the door, shutting out the storm and the ruined drawings and the charity gala where hundreds of thousands of dollars had been, raised for children in need, while one child in particular had been turned away. As the ambulance sped through the rainy streets toward Boston General Hospital, its siren cutting through the night, Maya drifted in and out of consciousness. Each time she surfaced, the same thought circled in her mind. "I failed. I'm sorry, Jake. I failed." Beside her, Dr. Catherine Morales held her hand and made a silent vow that this child would not face whatever was coming alone. Something about Maya's dignity in the face of rejection, her determination to help her brother despite overwhelming odds, had touched Catherine deeply. In her 15 years as a pediatrician, she had learned that sometimes the most important treatment wasn't medical at all, but human, the simple act of bearing witness to suffering and saying, "I see you. You matter. You are not alone." What Catherine couldn't know, as the ambulance wound its way through Boston's rainy streets, was how their lives would intertwine in the days to come, or that Maya's failed attempt to sell her artwork would set in motion events that would change not just her family's future, but Catherine's understanding of true charity as well. For now, there was only the rain, the pain, and the ruined drawings, a thin child's desperate gamble that had ended in disaster. Maya closed her eyes against tears, unaware that this lowest moment would eventually lead to unexpected hope. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she pictured Jake's face and promised him silently, "This isn't over. That's a Thompson guarantee." Trauma. Case coming in. Hit and run near the Grand Meridian. ETA 5 minutes. Catherine immediately made a U-turn. "I'm 10 minutes away. I'll meet them in the ER." When she arrived, Catherine found a familiar face on the gurney, the same thin girl. From the charity event, Maya lay pale and still, an IV already in her arm. Her wet clothes had been cut away, revealing painful bruising across her hip and ribs. "BP is 90/60, a nurse reported. "She's been in and out of consciousness." Catherine leaned over the gurney. "Maya, can you hear me?" The girl's eyelids fluttered. "My brother," she whispered. "Please call my mom. Jake needs his treatment tomorrow." Catherine squeezed her hand. "We'll call her right away. Don't worry about that now." Over the next hour, Catherine ordered scans that revealed a fractured pelvis and internal bleeding. Maya was rushed into surgery. While Maya was in the operating room, her mother, Diane Thompson, arrived at the hospital, wild-eyed with fear. With her was a pale teenage boy in a wheelchair, Jake, Maya's 15-year-old brother. "Where is she? Is she going to be okay?" Diane asked, her voice breaking. Catherine introduced herself. "She's in surgery now. The injuries are serious but treatable. Can we talk about what happened?" In a small consultation room, the story emerged. Robert Thompson, Maya's father, had died of cancer 2 years ago. The medical bills had depleted their savings before his death. Then, 6 months ago, Jake's kidneys began failing, a genetic condition that had remained dormant until puberty. Diane had lost her job when the manufacturing plant closed. Her new job at a convenience store didn't offer health insurance. They were on a waiting list for state assistance, but Jake needed dialysis twice a week to stay alive. They'd been paying out of pocket, draining every penny they had. Maya's art. Teacher told her she could sell her drawings, Diane explained, wiping away tears. She's been working on them for months. Tonight she said she was going to try the charity event because rich people might want to help. I should never have let her go alone. Catherine felt her throat tighten. "I was at that gala," she admitted. I saw Maya being turned away. Jake looked up, his eyes hollow with guilt. She was doing this for me, he said quietly. Everything she does is to try to help me. Back at the Grand Meridian, the Children's Future Foundation Gala was concluding. Eleanor Wright was thanking the last departing guests when her assistant approached with a hotel security officer. Mrs. Wright, there's something you should know, the officer said. A girl was hit by a car outside the hotel about 2 hours ago. Apparently, she was here trying to sell artwork to raise money for her brother's medical treatments. Eleanor frowned. Was she the thin girl in the lobby earlier? I saw someone talking to her. Yes, according to the police report, she's at Boston General now. Critical condition. The news spread quickly among the remaining gala attendees, including the 3 women who had mocked Maya. One of them, Vanessa Hartwell, was the wife of the hospital's chief administrator. Did anyone see her drawings? Vanessa asked, her voice hollow. The security officer nodded. They were ruined in the rain, but the responding officer said they looked professional. The girl's art teacher arrived at the scene and confirmed she's considered something of a prodigy. The weight of what they'd done, or failed to do, descended on the room. 3 days later, Maya opened her eyes to find her hospital room filled with flowers. Dr. Morales sat beside her bed, holding her hand. "Welcome back," Catherine said gently. "You've been through quite an ordeal." Maya's first question was about her brother. Catherine smiled. "Jake is fine. He's receiving treatment in our renal center right now." Maya's confusion must have shown on her face. "There's someone who wants to talk to you," Catherine said, stepping aside as Eleanor Wright entered the room. Eleanor approached the bed hesitantly. "Maya, I'm Eleanor Wright from the Children's Future Foundation. We owe you an apology." Over. The next half hour, Eleanor explained that after learning about Maya and Jake's situation, the foundation had created an emergency fund to cover Jake's treatments until their insurance situation was resolved. Furthermore, the hospital had enrolled the family in a special program for underinsured patients with chronic conditions. "But that's not all," Eleanor continued, pulling out a tablet. "Your art teacher brought these to us." She showed Maya photos of her earlier drawings, pieces Maya had given to Mrs. Sanchez over the past year. "We organized an impromptu auction at the hospital yesterday," Eleanor explained. "All of the gala attendees were invited." Catherine took over. "Maya, your drawings sold for over $40,000. Maya's eyes widened in disbelief. "It turns out," Catherine continued, "some of those wealthy art collectors recognized true talent when they finally saw it. The money has been placed in a trust for your education and Jake's ongoing care." Eleanor wiped away a tear. "We were so busy patting ourselves on the back for our charity that we missed the actual person in need standing right in front of us. I'm so deeply sorry." In the doorway, Maya spotted her mother and Jake, who was being pushed in a wheelchair by a nurse. Jake's color was better than it had been in months. "Your art saved my life, sis," Jake said, his voice choked with emotion. "Just like you always said it would." 2 weeks later, Maya sat in a wheelchair in the hospital's atrium, where a special exhibit had been mounted. Unseen, the art of Maya Thompson featured prints of her previous work alongside new pieces she'd created during her recovery. Each drawing was marked with a red "Sold" sticker. The 3 women who had dismissed her at the gala approached nervously, led by Vanessa Hartwell. "Maya," Vanessa began, her voice unsteady, "we came to apologize in person. Our behavior was inexcusable." Maya studied them quietly. Then she reached for her sketchbook and tore out a page, a drawing of 3 elegant women with their faces turned, away from a small figure in the rain. "This one isn't for sale," Maya said, handing it to them. "It's a gift, to remind us all that we never really know someone's story until we take the time to listen." The women accepted the drawing with tears in their eyes, understanding the profound lesson in forgiveness that this child, whom they had once called disgusting, was teaching them. As they walked away, Maya turned her attention to a blank page. and began to draw again. This time, it was an image of her brother standing tall and healthy, his future stretching out before him like an empty canvas waiting to be filled. The end.